First of all, good afternoon, everyone. And it's really my pleasure and honor to host this panel with some of the esteemed panelists that we have today. And thanks to Emergent Ventures, Minjar, for really organizing this informative summit that we've had an amazing opportunity to listen to Jyoti, to some of the other panelists that we have heard all throughout the day. So before we start, I just wanted to tell a little story and then we can obviously get into this discussion. So I run Nutanix business for India. I've been with Nutanix for a little over 2 years, and I get this question a lot when I lived in US, moved back to India, from a lot of people and customers when I travel saying, where am I based out of, right? And I'm sure most of us get this question in our industry. And it's very interesting because I'm from Pune, my family's from Pune, where I live. My office is in Mumbai, which is where Nutanix's sales headquarters. And I travel pretty much every day of the week. So it's very difficult to answer that question as to where we live. And the same thing, if you look at, it's mimicking the enterprise computing and the cloud world. I mean, if I come to Bangalore and I stay in a hotel, then I obviously choose to, because I'm living here for a short time, I choose to live in a hotel. But where I live, where I stay in Pune, I own my own house. So the reason why we have this panel, and obviously I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, is what's happening in our personal lives where we can either Ola, Uber, rent and buy and lease and own a car, or we basically stay in a hotel for short term, we lease an apartment for mid to long term, we have our own house where we live for 3 to 5 years. The same thing actually mimics enterprise computing, right? And this is no different than what we are actually all dealing with. So with that, I just wanted to get a couple of minutes and get everybody introduced. So Mohit Saxena, CTO, co-founder of InMobi. Obviously, the first Indian unicorn. I mean, we are really proud of that. Mohit, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and a little bit about your company? Yeah.
So we are in mobile advertising at this point of time, and I think we are a global company at this point of time, and the growth came very suddenly to us. We started from India, but even from first year, it was very clear that we will not have a very big business in India. So we are very proud of the fact that as a company, we are the product and tech company that is headquartered in Bangalore. But in terms of our business, we are quite global. We are present in 165 countries with offices in 22 places. And it has been a very interesting journey for us, shuttling between cloud and on-prem. Because the kind of scale we handle is really tremendous. And when we started in 2008 and 9, there was really no fixed recipe. You try both things. And that's where I think we had some very interesting learning that's possibly I will share later on.
Sure.
So since 2007, I founded and I'm with InMobi and leading the technology group. Before that, I have a stint with Virgin Mobile, Richard Branson's group. We were one of the pioneer in building prepaid mobile cell phone services. So I was part of that team, first 50 employee. And before that, I was with AT&T. Yeah. By degree, I'm a metallurgical engineering. So don't ask me how I ended up there.
Great stuff. Anindo, why don't you just introduce yourself? Yeah.
Thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anindo. Currently, I'm an independent cloud advisor. Have been on both sides of the table of the enterprise technology journey. Spent a lot of time with GE in roles, and then last decade have been helping the whole cloud initiative, taking customers through on their journey to cloud with large outsourcers, and most recently worked with Vijay and with Minjar. One of the things that I feel pretty passionate about is the fact that we are at a cusp of a huge technology revolution. We all here are contributing some of it, and it's a great opportunity for us to do what we can do in our lifetimes and our career. Thanks.
Thank you. Himanshu? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in businesses of digital transformation, and without cloud, it's a period. There is nothing which we can do in the digital transformation, right? So cloud is, our theme is wired for speed, and cloud is the thing that provides the speed to us, right? From a background point of view, I passed out from IIT Guwahati and have been into this industry for almost 15 years. Started with Trilogy, which was famous for the tech brand. And after that, came into the entrepreneur world, started HashedIn 7 years back. Have been helping enterprises and startups in building new age products or helping enterprises with the modernization. So those are two core offerings that we bring to the table. we call ourselves as product development services company.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to have a couple of lead-in questions, and then obviously we'll open up for Q&A to have give an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. But you mentioned a little bit about your journey, Mohit, right? And let me start with you saying, what does cloud mean to you and InMobi? And walk us a little bit through your journey on, I remember you came to our office and Namit and I kind of hosted you. By the way, that's Namit Jain. I just wanted to introduce my colleague. He heads our development center, Nutanix in India. And walk us through the journey, if you don't mind, and where you are today and where obviously you would obviously go next in the journey.
Yeah, so I think, we, with cloud, we have on and off relationship, and I'll break it down into 3 phases. So the first experience that we had with the cloud is around 2009 and 10. And we were growing very fast. So I think when we started as a company, we were based in a data center in India. And if you know, mobile is a very low latency and very distributed environment. And we started facing a lot of issues because, there was a lot of infrastructure problem, even the bandwidth SLA. And then we decided to basically try one of the cloud offering. At that point of time, it was only AWS, only one of the company. So we went there and we started tinkering with our stack over there. So we faced 2 problems. One is our bill was basically moving higher than our traffic. So we almost having heart attack every time, and we were looking at that number. And obviously at that time, we just went ahead without much preparation that how to really leverage cloud. We were used to of building bare metal, and we just went over there. That was one thing. The second thing is, we were doing a lot of complex computation in our own stack, and nothing was available out there. It was very, the offerings were quite rudimentary. So it didn't work for us on first time we came back. Yeah. And then we started expanding, we started renting out big data center, and we started setting up our own data center. So in 2014-13, we were almost running 6 data center across the globe. But the problem is, we are not in the procurement business. Every time ordering, and we hated that process. You want to order 100 servers, there's a lead time, and the business is almost at hold. You can't do anything. So once again, we started trying that. And this time we were little better prepared. So we got good results in using a hybrid environment, and we were mostly using for cloud is either a spillover capacity or some new product that we want to try out, and we are not so sure. And when they scale, we bring them back to on-premise. But at the same time, in our on-premise, we started using a lot of hybrid technologies, whether it's a hypervisor, Zen server, and some of those options. So there was a lot of unlearning and learning went over there as well. Coming back to this time, now I think once again we have a very serious cloud strategy, and there are 3 reasons to that. One is we still hate procurement business. We want to come out of it. Every time we are not working on building or focusing on our product, it's a waste of time for me. And the cloud technologies and even the solution, they have evolved. And the price is not such a big deterrence anymore. You get more value out of it, and the software stack is quite stable. That's one thing. And the second thing is, even virtualization is quite mature. The kind of efficiency you get is quite different what you get in bare metal. But once again, we are going through a process where the engineering mindset has to evolve, especially when the people have a lot of inertia who have been working on bare metal environment where you don't have to worry about storage and compute. The machine is yours. You can do anything. So it creates a lot of bad habits, even in good engineers as well. So it's a process. So third time is a charm, and that's what I'm hoping that this time we'll find the right combination.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. Anindo, I'm going to have a slightly different question because you are in a very unique role because you obviously were in Minja, now you're an independent advisor, consultant. You talk to a lot of customers and partners. Where do you see this cloud adoption, right? Both public, on-prem, off-prem, hybrid, enterprise. I mean, it doesn't matter what you call. One is either, to me, it's only 2 options. Either you can go to cloud or you can bring cloud to your data center, right? I mean, those are the 2 things that customers are looking for, right? And if you can't take your data to cloud, then you better get the cloud experience in your data center. So where do you see that adoption within your customers, and how do you kind of help them from their journey when they want to adopt these new enterprise cloud technologies?
So I think first I'll kind of expand on what you said, right, where either you can go to cloud or bring cloud to your data center. I think one of the fundamental things, and the way I explain what cloud is even 10 years back or 8 years back, cloud had a very technical definition, right? Where we were trying to nothing but promote virtualization on demand and elastic virtualization is what cloud used to be, and then we've seen a journey. But I think today, for me, if I have to define cloud, it goes back to what Mohit just said, right? How do you make the developer experience seamless? Becomes the central theme where you basically create a platform for innovative product development. And that's when the context of whether it has to be public or private is not there anymore. Is it the right platform for innovation? And that's what cloud is. And with that said, in terms of journey, I think I see a difference in how people are approaching it. And we talk about a lot of startups innovating because there is no hurdle and you can use cloud. So there is a segment which I would call technology aware. They've kind of embraced it by default and for different reasons. But then when you hit scale, like InMobi, you get into some of the challenges and obviously you make some choices. But finally it boils down to a central point. Do you have that platform experience as a service or not? And then if you get the similar experience, and that's where, to me, even private cloud, there are different variants of what you can get in the market. The more you are there, where you can actually create the platform as a service, I think finally it becomes an economic decision on what you want. And then there are compliance and regulatory choices. So you make a choice according to that. But the most important thing is the ease of use for developer experiences. I think to me becomes the central definition for me for cloud.
Absolutely, wonderful, great. Himanshu, I have, again, on the similar lines, right? I mean, we have a rich background. You obviously co-founded and CEO of HashedIn. Give us a little bit of background about where do you see in your own organization the adoption, but more importantly, what are the challenges you're seeing in your organization for adopting cloud? Is it more cultural? Is it more skills? I mean, where do you see the gap in some of the adoption?
So I think it's a culture shift, right? For the enterprises or for businesses, the mentality has been there is a different team who is doing a development. There is a different team who is going to do the sysadmin. There is a different team who is at some point going to do the support and maintenance kind of thing. So that kind of creates a different silo worlds. And that's where some of the coordination and some of the efficiencies are not taken out, right? So I think what we have learned over time and what we have been helping out with some of the enterprises while building the new age products is that all those three things are together. Whoever is building it needs to ship it, needs to maintain it. There are no different teams. There is no different blame fingers to talk about, okay, the release couldn't go because there was an issue with the infrastructure, right? So all those three things has to come together. So it's first is the importance thing is the culture shift, which is talking, which has to come from the top down, that there is a team who is responsible for the complete product, the success of the product. That's the first thing. The second thing I think which is required, which is more on the skill set side, is I would say knowing about or having good hands-on on a scripting language. So Python or Ruby are the two where in the older world, we used to have a team where they used to procure the infrastructure. There used to be a guy who used to set up the OS, software, and if build is failing, a dev is called, and those kind of things. So here, automation is also coming into play. So if let's say I have built a feature, I want to try out a A/B testing going into the market, I should be, with a one click of a button, should be able to launch that feature into an environment, should be testable, and should be feature gated into a production, right? So skill set in terms of automation, knowing the scripting language, and the culture shift, I think are the three major things. But with cloud, one thing which remains with the sysadmins, or one feature which I would call is the security model. Because the security, the security concept which you used to have over the data center are some applicable still on the cloud side, because those fundamentals are not going to change. So sysadmin is going to go away with the cloud thing, but those three, culture shift, scripting, programming, and automation, I think are the three things which a lot of enterprises and business are doing, and I think that's the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anindo, I know we discussed just before this, and you said there are certain workloads that when you consult with your customers, and I'm sure people here would love to understand that. What are the criteria when your customers decide saying, okay, this is suited, this is not, whether I need to bring my own enterprise cloud set up in my own data center. Like Mohit's example of low latency workload may not be the right choice to immediately move on cloud. But what are, in your experiences, some of the classic workloads that you have consulted customers with in adoption of cloud?
So I think from a workload adoption at a very high level, what I've seen in a lot of cases is the decision is a challenge more for what you already have.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to decide based on any new workload or a new team working on a project, what you would do. But when you have existing workloads, to me, it's a function of application characteristics, right? Typically, if you have applications which are stable, where your level of effort going into even maintaining or change a long tail application, and with a lot of maybe, simply put, a potential monolithic architecture where it's been around for years, the reality is there could be certain challenges in moving the same thing and see any benefit of getting to a elastic public cloud. But at the same time, as I said, right, the ease of management, the ease of making sure the application works well, makes it better for, say, a private cloud kind of workload. But finally, it also boils down to not just technical architecture, but there are a lot more enabling in like compliance, data security, or the data residency laws. So finally, what I always suggest is you have to make a very application-centric decision, and an economic decision, and a compliant decision. Over a period of time, it's a function of what works best for the teams that will support and make it more efficient for them, and makes it right for the business as well as choice.
Wonderful. I love the fact you mentioned application, because what we are seeing more and more in our customers, and when we start having this discussion about cloud technologies, is, I love the example of Apple, right? I mean, how many people here have Apple or iPhone? Any Apple gadget? I'm sure half of you, or even more than that, right? And Apple doesn't sell us cloud, right? And Apple sells us music. They sell us photos, they sell us movies, and we consume cloud. So to me, cloud is something which should be invisible, just like how Apple has done it. And today's cloud is visible. That's another fundamental challenge we have in adoption when people are saying public, because again, there's a change of application, there is a application ownership plus visibility that is known to application. Whereas Apple's model is where I think cloud of future will be deployed. I don't know, Mohit, what's your take on, more importantly, where is cloud today, right? Because today it resides in a data center, be it Amazon or Microsoft or Azure or what have you. But tomorrow's cloud, how different would it be? And what would it actually be like?
I think your example was really right. We are living in a just-in-time economy.
Absolutely.
You know, earlier, if you think the patience of the people, whether they are listening music or page load is opening up, they are okay to wait for 10 seconds and 15 seconds. Today, nobody wants that. You know, I mean, if your app is not responding and if it's not working, and I'm not having instant gratification, pretty much there is an uninstall happen on your mobile world. And I'm talking to, because I'm coming from that world. So as a business, if I have to be the user first focus, and I have to basically design everything around how my end user experience is going to be looking, then the way I'm planning my deployment or the way I'm planning my software is that if I'm close enough to the user, no matter where the user is. So if I go in a data center model and all those things, setting up all over the world is just impossible. I can't do that. You are going to have these kind of problem. And I give you a very simple thing. So we are quite big in China, actually. We are one of the Indian company who have made very massive inroad to China. And we were trying to service that area from Singapore, Hong Kong, almost tried every country outside of China, you know, and signing 2-year contract over here. When this is over, then we went over there. And 6 years, we couldn't find that script. And eventually, we ended up in Beijing. And the way we ended up in Beijing is with AWS. We actually pushed them, set up something in China, but they got stuck with some problem, and then we ended up building our own DC. But the point is, the way the cloud solution is evolving, whether it's Azure, whether it's AWS, or even anybody else, you know, Rackspace for that matter, you know, they are evolving their business where they're creating multiple satellite places. You know, they can have, for example, Europe can be covered by 20 locations.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is where the world is heading. And as a business, if I have that flexibility and I can be close to user and I can focus on justifying or basically simplifying my bespoke experience to user, I think that's a greater help to the business rather than dealing with the complexity. So I believe this is where the world is heading, and it's very good, especially the user-centric startup, user-centric companies, not to focus on this problem. More or less, these are getting solved. Even if they are doing it possibly it's better to go with not very massive bare metal installation instead of thinking having a small virtualized satellite location and distribute your processing and workload and address that issue.
I think that's a wonderful point. Just to add before I pass it on to Anindo, and I think my point mentioned that earlier about cloud being in a data center. So today's cloud is actually the mainframes of 1980s, right? I'm sure most of us will resonate with that saying. It sits in one data center, and there are dumb terminals all across the world, right? But tomorrow's cloud, what we are already starting to see is the point you absolutely mentioned, Mohit, and you're spot on, because it's about, can we move cloud more closer to the application and more distributed, or with the advent of edge devices, IoT, we're talking about, can we have, we believe strongly that it'll be an era of multi-cloud where you'll have hundreds and thousands of cloud, if not millions, because of what's happening, and people like you who want to have computing distributed more to the edge, right? I don't know, Anindo, what is your take on the future of cloud, right? Where do you think public, hybrid, balance, where do you think all this is heading to?
So I think for me also it goes back to what I said, right? Yeah. Cloud, earlier we had a technical definition. Now it's becoming more on-demand, just-in-time consumption definition. I think earlier today, even Jyoti talked about, there was a question around the trend to serverless. And he kind of explained it pretty well, from monoliths to service-oriented to microservice to functional service, right? I really see the fact that applications will get smarter and get more service-oriented. So cloud is basically turning out to be anything as a service model in my mind. And what people will consume will be services. So today you had Joy from Cubole, so that's a data as a service model. We don't even remember how many services AWS or Azure offer. I mean, if I were to ask the number of count from this whole audience, well, I'll get a different number. And it is somewhere around between 70 to 100. I lost count out of 70. But the point is, what the cloud of future is really around offering the right services. And the next era is also about intelligence as a service. So we are talking a lot about AI and ML, but fundamentally, how do you consume it as a service is important. And as you start going that route, as you said, cloud is going to be invisible, but it has to be omnipresent, because if a developer building a service for a B2C idea in China wants the right experience for that platform, and it has to have the right set of functions and data services to make it work. Similarly, somebody innovating in Valley would need something for that market. So it's really important to have the two dimensions of as a service and the ubiquitous availability, and that's where I see cloud headed to.
That's wonderful. I'll just have one question, then I think we'll open up for Q&A. What's your advice, Himanshu, for people who are evaluating, understanding? What would be your one advice to customers and to audiences here? Yeah.
So yes, I think the most important which I talked about is the culture shift. It has to come from top down. So I was sometime back going through one interview of McKinsey digital practice head, and he was just quantifying some number for the Fortune 500 companies. He was saying in Europe, 4% of the board of directors are giving signals to go ahead with the digital transformation or the cloud usage. Whereas in US, the number is 25, and India, it's still less, right? So these numbers are not good because it's still on the lower side. So the culture shift has to come from top side. The second thing is, I think cloud is the future, and everyone, Anindo also talked about, right? It's not going to be just present kind of thing, it will be omnipresent. So everyone at some point need to start moving. So instead of being late kind of thing, I think this is the time when they should move to the cloud. So a lot of legacy application could be there. So think about the modernization as the second step. First could be move as it is, start using some benefit of cloud, and then think about how the modernization, which could be cloudification, certification could happen, where you get the other advantage also. And the third thing is, for the new age products, start with cloud. Don't think about the data center unless you have some compliances or some data security issues which is stopping you. Right? So I think those are my three advices to all.
Mohit, anything you want to add, and then we can probably extend questions.
No, I think I would agree what he mentioned. If you are starting from the beginning, I think today there is absolutely no doubt. It's reverse. Data centers are more expensive, and it's a long-term commitment, and I think you should not get into that. In fact, you should use the elasticity and you should use the cloud environment to fine-tune whether you are doing a market fit or whether you're just trying to fine-tune your own solution. And that's the cheapest way to go. And even I think that should remain this way unless you start to hit some significant problem with either causing a lack of technical efficiency or maybe some other cost escalation and all that. You should not think about it. But even if you are on DC, you go over there in today's world, there has to be a elastic philosophy in your mind. It's a mindset. Absolutely. So I think we are living in a world where I believe both needs to be part of the play.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think just to your point and Himanshu's point, I think what we are seeing more and more, and I think somebody earlier mentioned 20% to 40% adoption and all that. I think there is going to be a balance because of various reasons, right? Where cloud, when you say cloud, it means adoption of some sort of, you want to grow quickly, grow when you need, and scale forever, right? I think that's probably what people are looking for. But also what we have noticed, and Mohit, you alluded to it, after the cost escalations go up, customers realize they want to move back or have their own infrastructure and define the software defined in some sort of way, right? That's probably what's the need of the hour. With that, I probably want to open up for maybe 2 or 3 questions if you have time. If people have any questions. Yeah, there's one question there.
Yeah, my name is Sharath, and I'm from JMR Infotech, which is basically into Oracle solutions for cloud. We handle the CX solutions. My question is, we handle almost all the industry segments related to the cloud space, but we face challenges in the BFSI segment because of regulations and for insurance we have IRDA and for banking we have the central banks. So how do we address these challenges specifically in the BFSI segment because of central regulations? Because I know there is an area of concern. Other areas like retail or automotive or consumer goods may not have so much of challenges, but BFSI typically has got a lot of challenges in implementing. Typically, customers have to get go-ahead from the central authorities for a cloud solution.
Okay, got it. Anindo, you want to take that? I mean, from...
So I think from a specific regulation context for each domain, there is a different level of kind of maturity of cloud adoption. In terms of, I'm assuming you are a service provider supporting all these domains. I think you need to have a perspective which is both rooted in compliance as well as technology. From a technology perspective, I think we should be able to choose the right platform for the right workload, as I said earlier. And in terms of compliance, it is something that you really work with your clients. But when it comes to technology also, as I said, right, we started beginning saying cloud is more of a as a service model. There are ways, if that's the intent of the customer, there are solutions available where you can bring the cloud to the customer's data center as well. So finally you have to choose what solution is best fit within the, I think what we can't change as the ecosystem, the regulatory part, that's beyond the scope of at least the service provider-customer relationship. But within that regulatory framework, I think we should do what's right for the customer using the best and the most modern technology. And there are choices available.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Himanshu.
So there have been a couple of customers for us who have been into BFSI as well as into healthcare. So I think one approach that is being widely used and is going to be adopted is the hybrid cloud, right? So data is sensitive to the healthcare as well as these banks and BFSI industry. So what they do is they keep the data into their own data center, which is following the compliances, regulatory, what is required. But all the application which could be consumer facing, B2B, could be still developed over the cloud. And in the scenario where we were working with a Fortune 100 healthcare company, there was a pipe which was between the data center, which was with the customer, and the cloud, where the application was hosted, so that the latency of the data flowing is not also high. So there are those approaches which are coming, and I was again reading somewhere that hybrid cloud is the way how these compliances will be taken care or work around it.
Thank you. Time for one more question. Yeah, if you have it. Okay, with that, I just wanted to wrap up with a closing note. Again, like I said, everything has a balance in life. I think cloud technology is no different. I think that's what we've all noticed across industries. There is a space for public cloud. There will always be enterprise cloud with the advent of edge computing. There's a lot of edge clouds that are coming up now. it's really going to be an era of multi-cloud. And that's where I think we as panelists think, and like from Mohit, Anindo, Himanshu, I really want to thank all of you. Thank you so much for being a patient listener. And really appreciate the time that both Minjar and Emergent Venture Partners has given us. Thank you so much. Thank you.